The twin suns of Iridion painted the sky in shades of gold and crimson as Leora ran across the shimmering sands. Her laughter echoed between the towering biodomes, bouncing off the polished metal of the colony buildings. Kale was chasing her, his legs pumping as fast as they could. Dust swirled around their feet, sparkling like tiny stars in the sunlight. "Wait!" Kale shouted, but Leora was faster. She darted behind a low rock formation and peeked at him, her eyes wide with excitement. "You can't catch me, Kale." "I'm too fast." Kale groaned and stopped, bending over to catch his breath. "I'm not that slow," he said, trying to sound confident. But his chest rose and fell rapidly. Leora giggled, her curls bouncing with every laugh. "Let's make it interesting," she said suddenly, her tone serious but still playful. "If I win, you have to promise me something." Kale frowned, curiosity mixing with caution. "What do you want me to promise?" Leora crossed her arms and looked him in the eyes, her face small but full of determination. "You have to promise. You will marry me when I grow up." Kale froze. He stared at her, unsure if she was joking. "Marry you?" he said slowly, his voice tinged with disbelief. You're just a kid, Leora." "I know," she said, nodding eagerly. "But you have to promise. Otherwise, it's not fair. I'm counting on you." Kale blinked. The desert wind kicked up around them, carrying the scent of dry sand and faint ozone from the nearby energy fields. He rubbed the back of his neck. "Leora, you really want me to do that?" "Yes," she said firmly. "Promise." Kyle sighed. He couldn't resist her earnest face. Somehow, the intensity in her tiny eyes made it impossible to say no. "All right," he said finally, holding out his hand. "I promise to marry you when you grow up." Leora's face lit up. She grabbed his hand, shaking it with all the seriousness of a lifelong vow. "I knew you'd say yes," she said. "I knew it." Kale shook his head, smiling. "You know, Leora, you're going to regret making me say this someday." "Maybe," she said, her smile unwavering. "But I don't think so." And with that, she ran off again, leaving Kale standing in the warm Iridian sand, shaking his head. He laughed softly, thinking she would forget this silly promise in a few years. After all, how could a child's fantasy ever matter in the real world? The years passed faster than Kale expected. The small colony grew into a bustling hub, full of energy, machines, and people chasing dreams. Kale, once a carefree child, now focused on engineering and technology. He designed systems that would expand human colonies across uncharted planets, dreaming of distant stars while keeping Iridion safe and stable. Yet, Leora's promise, buried in his memory, faded like a faint shadow. He thought of it only when recalling childhood adventures or dusty afternoons under the twin suns. Life became a series of projects, missions, and responsibilities, leaving little room for childish fantasies. Meanwhile, Leora did not forget. She grew strong, intelligent, and curious, developing a sharp mind that matched her boundless energy. The promise became a quiet beacon in her heart, reminding her that humans could hold on to hope, dreams, and connections even in the face of vast uncertainty. She often looked up at the skies at night, imagining the worlds humanity had yet to explore. Stars filled the heavens like scattered diamonds, and Leora dreamed of reaching them not just as a scientist, but as someone who could keep promises, even the ones made in childhood. One morning, Kale arrived at the Central Engineering Lab, his mind consumed with calculations for the upcoming terraforming project. Engineers bustled around him, checking instruments, calibrating energy fields, and monitoring environmental systems. Kale's fingers moved quickly across holographic displays, adjusting parameters with precision. A voice interrupted his concentration. "Kale Varan?" He looked up to see a young woman with a confident stance, her auburn hair tied back neatly, and sharp eyes that seemed to see straight through him. "Yes?" he said, puzzled. "I'm Leora Marn," she said firmly. "You don't remember me, do you?" Kael blinked, scanning her face. The familiarity tugged at some corner of his memory. "Leora?" he said cautiously. "Wait. You're—" "Exactly," she interrupted, a small smile playing at her lips. "The same Leora from Iridian, who made you promise to marry me when I grew up." Kael felt the world tilt slightly. He rubbed his eyes. You were a kid. I thought you'd forget." "I didn't forget," she said calmly, "and I've been waiting for this moment ever since." Kael leaned back, trying to process the sudden convergence of childhood memory and present reality. How had she found him? Why now? The twin sons of Iridian no longer held the carefree magic of their youth. The colony was a place of duty and progress. And yet here she was, standing like a living reminder of a promise he had long dismissed. Leora continued, her voice gentle but firm. "I know life has changed us. I know people grow and dreams shift. But promises, especially the ones humans make, with their hearts carry weight." Kael swallowed hard. He looked away, staring at the sprawling colony outside the lab's window. Ships glinted in the sunlight, automated drones hovered like insects, and humans moved with precision across the landing platforms. The scale of everything made his childhood feel like a tiny, fragile memory in comparison. Yet, he could not dismiss her. Not anymore. I don't know what to say," he admitted, finally. "I never thought you'd take it seriously." "I was serious," she said simply. "And I still am." Kael ran a hand through his hair, unsure whether to laugh, shake his head, or step back entirely. "You're impossible," he said at last, a hint of a smile breaking through. "But maybe that's why I always liked being around you." Leora's eyes sparkled. "Being around me? That's convenient phrasing for someone who promised to marry me." Kael chuckled softly, the tension easing slightly. "Convenient or not, I made the promise. That much, I remember." Her smile widened. "Then maybe it's time we see if humanity can do what it does best: survive, adapt, and keep promises." The words struck him. Humanity had always faced impossible odds. Storms, colonies collapsing, ships breaking apart in deep space. And yet, humans endured, innovated, and flourished. Perhaps a promise, even one made by children under twin suns, could survive in the same way. Kael looked at her for a long moment. The years of neglecting the memory of their promise weighed against the present truth. Leora was here. She had grown into a remarkable human, and she believed in their connection. "I guess we'll find out," he said finally, his voice quiet but steady. "Whether humans and promises can really endure." Leora reached out her hand, and Kael took it. In that simple gesture, they acknowledged not just a promise, but the human ability to hold on to hope, loyalty, and courage across the years. Outside the lab, the twin sons of Iridian continued their eternal dance across the sky. Children still played in the sands. Engineers still tinkered with machines. And humans continued to push the boundaries of the stars. And somewhere, in the quiet between the suns, a promise made in childhood whispered across the winds. It was time to grow, to face the future, and to see if humans could keep what mattered most. The mining asteroid, known as Kessera 9, hung like a jagged jewel in the darkness of space. Massive drills and automated extractors clung to its surface, sending shivers through the colony as they tore precious minerals from its core. Kael stepped off the transport shuttle, his boots clanging on the metallic landing pad. His mind was already running through calculations, schedules, and structural plans for the new energy extraction system he had been assigned to supervise. "Kyle Varan?" a voice called from behind him. He turned, expecting an assistant or an official from the colony, but instead saw a familiar figure stepping confidently toward him. Her auburn hair glinted under the artificial lights, tied back neatly as if ready for work rather than play. She was no longer the small, spirited girl from Iridian. She was fully grown, her posture straight, eyes sharp with intelligence and purpose. "Leora," Kael said, almost in disbelief. You're here?" "I am," she said simply, "and I've been assigned as the lead astrophysics consultant for this project. Looks like fate has its own plans." Kael felt a strange mixture of astonishment and unease. Seeing her here, on Kessera 9, brought back memories he had long ignored. And yet, here she was strong, capable, and entirely unshakable. "Consultant?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. "I've been working on orbital stability and asteroid structural integrity for years," she replied, her tone calm but assertive. "And I'm here to make sure the mining doesn't destabilize Kessera 9. Something tells me we'll need to work together." Kael laughed nervously, rubbing the back of his neck. "It seems we do. Again. Life has a funny way of repeating itself, doesn't it?" Leora smiled faintly, but her gaze remained focused. "Life isn't funny. It's persistent. Just like promises." He winced slightly at the reminder. She didn't forget. Not ever. And now, he had to face that promise, not as a child but as an adult, in the midst of a high-stakes mission. The first few days were tense. Kael and Leora moved through the metallic corridors of the mining colony, examining energy nodes, stress points in the asteroid, and resource extraction systems. Their interactions were polite but charged with unspoken memories. Kael noticed that she had inherited the same determination she had as a child, only sharpened by years of training and experience. One evening, Kael was reviewing energy flow diagrams in the central control hub when Leora appeared behind him. She leaned over his shoulder, her presence commanding yet familiar. "Kael," she said, pointing at a complex diagram. "If you redirect the main power conduit through the secondary stabilizers, it will reduce stress on the asteroid's crust by at least 12%. But you'll need to recalibrate the orbital thrusters to compensate for the weight shift." Kael stared at the holographic display. You're right. That would work. But it's risky. It might cause a temporary overload in the main reactor. And temporary overloads are part of progress, she said, smiling faintly. "We can handle it." He laughed softly, shaking his head. "You haven't changed at all. Still insisting on taking risks. Because you believe it's worth it. And you haven't changed either," she replied. "Still trying to play it safe, calculating every possible outcome before taking a step. Sometimes, Kael, people need a little push. Even engineers." For the first time in years, Kael felt like he was facing someone who understood him entirely. Not just his intellect, but his fears, his pride, and even his mistakes. And he realized that the childhood promise, the one he had dismissed as naive, had prepared him for this moment in ways he hadn't understood. A week into their mission, disaster struck. A tremor ran through Kessera 9, shaking the colony violently. Warning sirens blared as automated systems detected a potential collapse in the lower mining shafts. Kael and Leora raced to the control room, monitoring seismic activity and energy fluxes. "This is worse than I thought," Kael muttered, adjusting his interface. "If the lower shafts collapse, we could lose half the colony." Leora's hands flew over the controls. "We can stabilize it temporarily by reinforcing the core with emergency energy fields, but the drilling operations will need to stop immediately. Otherwise..." She didn't finish the sentence, but Kael knew exactly what she meant. Catastrophe. They worked side by side, combining their expertise. Kael's engineering knowledge allowed him to manipulate the energy conduits, while Leora calculated the exact stress points and structural weaknesses. Hours passed in tense silence, broken only by the hum of machinery and the occasional command to drones or automated systems. At one point, Kale glanced at her. She was calm, precise, her mind moving faster than any human or computer in the room. And yet, there was something human about the way she focused. An intuition he recognized from their childhood. That spark of curiosity and courage that could overcome any obstacle. You know, he said quietly, when you were a kid, you made me promise something I thought was impossible. I didn't know then that humans could really keep promises. But you've reminded me. She looked at him, her eyes softening slightly. Humans don't give up easily, Kale. Even when things seem impossible, we find a way. That's what makes us human. The tremors began to subside as their coordinated efforts stabilized the asteroid's core. Exhausted, they leaned against the console, breathing heavily. Outside, automated drones had already begun assessing structural integrity, and the colony's AI confirmed that no immediate collapse was imminent. Kael let out a long sigh. I don't know how we did it, but we did. Leora smiled, her eyes gleaming with relief. We did it because humans always find a way, Kael. And because we work together. In the quiet hours after the crisis, the colony's lights dimmed slightly, simulating night cycles to help the workers rest. Kael and Leora walked through the deserted corridors, their footsteps echoing softly. You've changed a lot, Kael said finally. Not just in skill, but in the way you handle things. You're incredible. And you haven't changed either, Leora replied. Still clever, still careful, still trying to do everything yourself. But today, you did it. You trusted me. Kael hesitated, then smiled faintly. I guess I had no choice. You wouldn't let me do it alone. She laughed softly. I wouldn't. Because humans succeed when they trust each other, when they act together. And I won. Stranger. He looked at her, the weight of years pressing gently between them. The promise she had made him honor long ago was no longer a childish fantasy. It was a reminder of trust, courage, and loyalty. He realized that humanity's strength wasn't just in machines or calculations, it was in people, in connections, in the ability to keep promises even across years and light years. Leora, he said quietly, I don't know if I ever thanked you properly. For reminding me. For everything. She smiled faintly, her gaze meeting his. You're welcome, Kael. But the real thanks goes to both of us. We kept this colony alive today. We kept humanity moving forward. The twin moons of Kessera 9 rose over the jagged horizon, casting pale light across the colony. Kael and Leora stood together, watching the moons drift in silence. For the first time in years, Kael understood the truth of the promise they were not just two individuals bound by a childhood vow. They were humans, part of a species that thrived on resilience, courage, and the ability to act when it mattered most. And in that moment, Kael realized something else. Perhaps humans could also keep promises made in childhood, even in the vast, unforgiving reaches of space. Tomorrow, Leora said softly, we plan the next phase. We stabilize the remaining shafts and ensure the colony can grow safely. Humanity always moves forward, Kael, even after the hardest nights. Kael nodded, feeling a spark of hope he hadn't felt in years. Then, forward we go. Together. Together, they walked back to the control hub, ready to face the challenges ahead. The asteroid was secure for now, but the universe was vast, and its dangers, many. Yet, Kael knew one thing. With humans like Leora by his side, no challenge was insurmountable. And so, as the artificial night embraced Kessera 9, the two humans, bound by past promises and present courage, prepared for the next adventure. Ready to prove that humanity's greatest strength was not technology, nor ships, nor mining colonies, but trust, loyalty, and the courage to act when it mattered most. The morning light on Kessera 9 was pale and uneven, filtering through the colony's domed windows in soft streaks. Kale and Leora had spent the night recalibrating emergency systems after the tremor, and the air in the control hub still hummed with the residual energy of their efforts. Despite the crisis being over, both knew the asteroid remained unstable. One wrong move, and everything could collapse. Kale, we need to run simulations on the secondary shafts, Leora said, her voice calm but firm. She had already projected a holographic model of the asteroid, its layers shifting and trembling as if alive. The tremor weakened the internal support beams. If we continue mining at full speed, we risk triggering another collapse. Kale rubbed his temples. I know. But the colony's energy reserves depend on the minerals from those shafts. If we slow down too much, other colonies could face shortages. We have to balance safety and supply. Then we'll have to do it the human way, Leora said with a small smile. Carefully, intelligently. Kale chuckled softly. It seems humans really can do anything if we try hard enough. The two worked side by side, inputting data, adjusting energy fields, and simulating every possible outcome. Their minds were in perfect sync, complementing each other's strengths. Kale excelled at technical precision and efficiency, while Leora excelled at foresight, predicting subtle shifts and stresses in the asteroid's structure. Hours passed, and the asteroid's tremors were not the only problem. A sudden warning flashed across the control hub. The mining AI reported a deep core instability in one of the lower shafts. Sensors indicated that a cavern previously thought stable was beginning to collapse under pressure. Kale's stomach sank. This one wasn't in the simulations, he shouted. Then we adapt, Leora said immediately, her hands flying over the controls. We'll use temporary field stabilizers and reroute energy flows. I can calculate the adjustments in real time, but I need you to implement them physically in the core system. Kale nodded. I'm on it. The corridors leading to the core were narrow, the walls vibrating slightly as the asteroid trembled beneath them. Automated drones hovered around, scanning for debris, while emergency lights flickered, casting long shadows. Kale's hands moved quickly over panels and conduits, rerouting energy lines as Leora guided him from the hub through her calculations. Left side conduit divert 20% to the auxiliary nodes. Now. Leora's voice was calm but urgent. Kale adjusted the conduit, sweat dripping from his forehead. Sparks flew from overloaded panels, and the smell of ozone filled the air. Done, he called. Good. Now the secondary reinforcement field activates slowly. Increase output by 15%. But watch the main reactor. Don't overload it. Kale pressed the controls carefully, watching the energy meters. For a moment, everything seemed stable. Then, a tremor shook the corridor violently, throwing him against the wall. Leora's voice rang in his earpiece. Kale, brace yourself. The secondary support is failing. He gritted his teeth, regaining his balance, and adjusted the field. Sparks danced around the control panel, and the lights flickered dangerously. For a terrifying moment, it seemed as if the asteroid itself would tear apart. But then, slowly, the tremors subsided. Energy fields stabilized. The deep core shaft, weakened and dangerous, held firm under their combined efforts. Kale exhaled deeply, leaning against a wall for support. We did it, he whispered, disbelief in his voice. Leora appeared beside him, her expression calm but tired. We did, but Kale, this is only the beginning. Kessera 9 is fragile, and the more we extract, the more unstable it becomes. Kale nodded, realizing the truth in her words. Humanity's challenges were not solved with a single victory. They required constant vigilance, intelligence, and courage. But standing here with Leora, He felt something he hadn't felt in years. Trust. Trust not just in her, but in human resilience. That evening, the colony gathered for a short briefing. Engineers, scientists, and technicians crowded the main hall, exchanging nervous glances. Kale and Leora presented their findings, explaining the emergency measures and the ongoing risks of deep-core mining. Their clear, precise instructions calmed many fears, though the tension in the room was palpable. During the debrief, a young engineer approached them. "I don't know how you did it," he said. "The lower shafts were supposed to collapse hours ago, but the colony is still standing. You saved us all." Leora smiled faintly. "Humans save themselves by working together. Calculations matter, but so does courage." Kale added, "And trust. We trust each other. We trust that when something seems impossible, someone will find a way. That's what keeps humans moving forward." The engineer nodded slowly, as if realizing the truth in their words. "I hope I can be like that someday." "Nodderly. Nodderly. You already are," Kale said softly. "It just takes practice." Later, after the hall emptied and the colony settled into a tense quiet, Kale and Leora walked along the observation deck, overlooking the jagged surface of Kisara 9. The asteroid's irregular shape reflected pale light from distant stars, casting sharp shadows. "You know," Kale said, breaking the silence, "I thought when I made that promise to you, you know, when we were kids, that it was meaningless. Just a game. A silly idea that wouldn't matter in the real world." Leora looked at him, her eyes thoughtful. "I never thought it was meaningless. Promises aren't just words, Kale. They're intentions. And intentions can guide humans in ways you don't expect, even across years and light years." He sighed, leaning against the railing. "I forgot that. I forgot how humans can hold on to things, even when it seems impossible. And yet, here you are, reminding me." She smiled gently. "And you remembered too. In the end, humans always remember what matters." Kale looked at her. The memory of a child's promise, now intertwined with their present reality. They were no longer kids playing in the sand beneath twin suns. They were humans standing together on a fragile asteroid, facing dangers that could destroy them in an instant. Yet, in that danger, they found strength. "Tomorrow," Leora said, "we reinforce the remaining shafts and expand the secondary stabilizers. We'll need everyone working together. Humans don't fail when they act as one." Kale nodded. "Then tomorrow we do it. Together." That night, Kale could not sleep. He stared at the stars above Kessera 9, their light cutting through the darkness like shards of hope. Memories of Iridian returned the sands, the laughter, the promise. And he realized that humanity's greatest strength was not in technology or structures or energy fields. It was in connection, loyalty, and courage. He thought of Leora, her unwavering determination, her brilliance, and her courage. She had reminded him that even in the vast, uncaring universe, humans could stand firm. They could face dangers, make difficult choices, and protect what mattered most. The next morning, Kale and Leora returned to the core shafts, leading a team of engineers and technicians. Their hands moved over panels and conduits, their minds perfectly synchronized. Every adjustment, every calculation, every decision reflected not just skill, but trust, a human trust that spanned years and planets. Hours passed in tense focus. Tremors threatened, warnings flashed, and energy levels spiked dangerously. Yet, through it all, Kale and Leora guided the colony, stabilizing shafts, reinforcing structures, and keeping human lives safe. Their teamwork was flawless. A perfect example of human ingenuity and courage. By nightfall, Kisara 9 was stable. The colony could continue mining without immediate danger, thanks to their efforts. Exhausted but satisfied, Kale and Leora stepped outside the core control room, gazing at the jagged asteroid landscape. "You did well today," Leora said softly. "Not just technically, Kale. You trusted me, you adapted, and you led. That's what humans do when they survive impossible situations." Kale smiled faintly. "We did it together. That's what humans do best." Leora's gaze softened. "And we'll keep doing it, no matter what the universe throws at us." Kale nodded, feeling a profound sense of clarity. Humanity's resilience, courage, and loyalty were not abstract concepts. They were lived, experienced, and proven every day. And as he looked at Leora, he realized something else. The promise she had made him honor was no longer just a childhood memory. It was a symbol of human endurance, hope, and trust. The asteroid may be fragile, the universe vast and dangerous, but Kale knew one thing with certainty. With humans like Leora, humanity could face any test and survive. And in that moment, standing on the edge of Kessera 9, Kyle understood that the greatest tests were not just in the stars, they were in the heart, in keeping promises, and in acting when it mattered most. The surface of Kessera 9 shimmered faintly under the distant light of nearby stars. The mining colony had settled into a quiet rhythm after the tense days of tremors, system failures, and emergency stabilization. Kyle walked through the corridors, his boots echoing on the metal floor, and for the first time in weeks, he allowed himself a moment of calm. "Kale, are you coming to the observation deck?" Leora's voice came from behind him. He turned to see her, standing straight and composed, her expression calm but radiant. The exhaustion of their long days was etched lightly on her face. Yet her eyes shone with that familiar spark, the same determination and brilliance that had made him respect and trust her so deeply. "Of course," he said, falling into step beside her. The observation deck was quiet, illuminated by soft white lights. Outside, Kessera 9 stretched in jagged shadows, its metal scaffolds glinting under the stars. Automated drones hovered near the mining rigs, maintaining them, a testament to the teamwork of humans and technology. Leora leaned against the railing, her gaze fixed on the distant horizon. "We've done well," she said softly. "The colony is stable, the shafts are reinforced, and no lives were lost. Humans, survived again." Kale nodded, feeling a sense of pride swell in his chest. "We did it. And it wasn't just skill or machines. It was people. Trust, teamwork, courage. That's what made the difference." She turned to him, her eyes steady. "Exactly. Humans aren't just about tools or calculations. We are about the connections we build, the promises we keep, and the courage we show in impossible moments. That's what separates us from the void out there." Kale's thoughts drifted to the promise she had made him long ago, the one he had dismissed as childish. Now, standing here beside her, he realized it had never been childish at all. It was a symbol of trust, hope, and human perseverance. "Leora," he said quietly, "I want to talk about that promise." Her lips curved into a gentle smile. He looked out at the asteroid, at the stars beyond, and then back at her. "I thought it was just a silly thing, something we said as kids. But I see now. Promises matter. And humans can honor them even after years, even across worlds." Leora stepped closer. "Exactly. And humans don't just survive challenges in space. We survive in the heart. That's where true courage lives." Kale reached out, taking her hand in his. The touch was simple, human, grounding. "Then, let's honor it. Together." Leora's eyes shone with warmth. "Together," she said, her voice soft, but certain. The following days were filled with activity, but now there was a new energy in their teamwork. Kale and Leora coordinated the colony's operations seamlessly. The remaining mining shafts were reinforced, energy flows optimized, and stress points carefully monitored. Automated drones worked alongside humans, responding to every adjustment, every command. During one particularly tense operation, a minor tremor shook the lower shafts. Engineers froze in fear, and alarms blared. But Kale and Leora moved with calm precision, adjusting energy fields and reinforcing supports. Humans are stronger than we realize, Leora said calmly. Even when the odds are stacked against us, we adapt. Kale nodded, feeling the truth of her words. And even when the universe throws danger at us, we find a way. We survive. We endure. That's humanity. By nightfall, the colony's systems were operating at peak efficiency. Every miner, engineer, and scientist had learned something new about teamwork, trust, and resilience. The asteroid, once unstable and dangerous, now stood as a symbol of human ingenuity and courage. One evening, as the stars glimmered through the observation dome, Kale and Leora stood side by side, looking out over the colony. "You know," Kale said thoughtfully, "I've been thinking about the promise. Not just the one from childhood, but what it represents. Humans make promises, and we keep them, even across years, even across worlds. That's powerful." Leora nodded, her gaze steady. "It is. Promises remind us of who we are. They remind us that even when the universe is vast and uncaring, humans can create meaning, hope, and connection." Kale smiled. "Then let's honor more than the promise. Let's honor humanity itself. Our courage, our ingenuity, our loyalty." Leora laughed softly, a sound that was light yet full of warmth. "I think that's a promise worth keeping." They spent the night planning the colony's future, discussing ways to expand safely, stabilize other sectors of Kasara 9, and ensure that humans could thrive in such a harsh environment. Their discussions were detailed and precise, yet always grounded in human care and foresight. Every decision reflected trust and courage, not just in themselves but in every human who would live and work on the asteroid. Days turned into weeks. Kasara 9 became a thriving hub of energy production, mineral extraction, and human ingenuity. Kale and Leora continued to work side by side, their bond strengthened by shared challenges and shared victories. One afternoon, after a particularly long shift, Kale and Leora stood outside, watching the twin moons of Kasara 9 rise slowly over the horizon. The view was breathtaking. Shadows stretched across jagged metal and rocky surfaces, and the light of distant stars painted the asteroid in ethereal colors. "Kale," Leora said softly, "we've done it. The colony is stable. The shafts are reinforced. The people are safe. Humanity has survived again." Kale smiled faintly, taking her hand. "Yes, and it's because of humans like you. Courageous, smart, determined. You reminded me of what truly matters. And you reminded me too," she said. "Even when things seemed impossible, we acted. We survived. That's humanity." They stood together in silence, letting the moment stretch. Beyond them lay the void of space, vast, unknown, and indifferent. Yet, within that void, humanity thrived. Not because of technology alone, not because of machines or calculations, but because of trust, courage, and loyalty. Kale squeezed Leora's hand gently. "I think we should keep going. Together. Not just the promise, but everything humans can achieve. We can face anything." Leora smiled, leaning slightly against him. "Together," she agreed. "Always." The next morning, the colony gathered for a ceremony. Engineers, scientists, and miners celebrated the stabilization of Kasara 9. Automated drones floated silently above, projecting holograms of energy flow and shaft integrity. while the human workers cheered, clapped, and embraced. Kael and Leora stood together at the center of the hall, quiet but proud. Kael addressed the colony. Today, we have proven something important. Humanity faces impossible challenges every day. The universe is vast, dangerous, and indifferent. But humans endure. Humans adapt. Humans survive. And, most importantly, humans keep their promises to each other and to the future. Leora stepped forward. We have proven that trust, courage, and teamwork are more powerful than any obstacle. Even when danger seems insurmountable, humans find a way. That's what makes us extraordinary. The crowd erupted in applause. Every face reflected pride, hope, and the knowledge that they were part of something greater than themselves. That evening, Kael and Leora walked to the observation deck once more, alone this time. The colony below shimmered like a small jewel on the jagged asteroid surface, alive with light and movement. Kael, Leora said, we've accomplished so much. But there's one thing left to do. Kael looked at her, understanding immediately. Yes, the promise. She nodded. The promise isn't just a memory. It's a choice, a commitment, and I want to honor it with you. Here, now. Kael smiled, feeling the weight of years, memories, and human resilience converge in that moment. Then, let's do it. Together. And in the quiet glow of Kessera Nine's moons, Kael and Leora made their choice. It was not just a fulfillment of a childhood vow, but a testament to humanity itself. That trust, courage, and loyalty could endure across time and space. That even in the vast, cold universe, humans could create warmth, hope, and meaning. They stood hand in hand, gazing at the stars, knowing that whatever challenges awaited them on Kessera 9 or across the galaxy, they would face them as humans, together. For in their unity, in their courage, and in their unwavering trust, they had proven what humans could do. They could survive, adapt, and thrive. They could honor promises, protect life, and light the darkness with hope. And most importantly, they had shown that the heart of humanity, the part that dreams, believes, and perseveres, was unstoppable. The twin moons rose higher, casting a gentle glow across the asteroid. Kael and Leora stood together, not as children, not as colleagues, but as equals, partners, and humans who understood the true meaning of resilience, courage, and promise. The stars shone endlessly above and below. Kessera 9 thrived. Humanity endured. And so, in the vast, infinite universe, hope remained alive.